Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Welcome back. Welcome back to our Entitled People, where you'll hear ridiculous stories about people who truly think they can do no wrong and will always, always get what they want. Today, we've got 7 outrageous stories. The first story is a hilarious story about a family forcing Op to fake his accent. The second story, an entitled guy throws a tantrum at airline staff when he doesn't get his way. And the third story is about an entitled neighbor who gets what he deserves because he's a thief. My friends, I do hope you stay for the stories today and hit that subscribe button for future stories. Let's dive in, my friends. So, I don't know if this is really the right place to post this because the parent was more insane and moronic than entitled. So back when I was 20, me and my friends went on a summer-long working holiday to the US. Important for the story is that we are all Irish. We all got jobs, etc., and spent the majority of our time drinking, partying, getting high, and trying to get with girls. So, there was this one girl I worked with who was as American as apple pie, but claimed to be Irish because she has Irish heritage. Now, I know a lot of Irish people dislike it, but I just find it funny and endearing that people are proud enough of Ireland to claim it as their nationality when they've never been there. Anyway, me and this girl got along very well platonically, and we hung out a bit after work. She invited me back to her family home for dinner, and I, being poor and hungry, of course said yes. She drove me, and my God, when we got to the house, there were Irish things everywhere. There was a giant Irish flag billowing in the air, giant plastic shamrocks all over the garden, and fighting leprechaun figurines and statues in the garden. Now, I thought this was all hilarious and didn't say anything. Then, I went in and said hi to her mom, who was nice, and to her dad, who was not. The first thing he said to me was, "Cut out that accent, kid. It's offensive to us Irish folk." I was absolutely just speaking in my normal Irish voice. I was baffled, but I assumed he thought I was American pretending to be Irish. I tried to clear it up by saying, "Sorry, I'm Irish. I'm not doing an accent." He then said, "Cut the nonsense. We are Irish and we don't talk like that." He was getting really angry at me, and I was really just trying to de-escalate the situation and said, "No, I'm from Ireland. I'm here on holiday." He then asked me, "Where in Ireland do your kin hail from?" Now, it was really weird phrasing that no one in Ireland or anywhere would say, and I said, "I'm literally from Cork in Ireland. I've lived there all my life. I'm not putting on an accent. This is how I talk." He said, "Cork? Never heard of it." "My kin are from Cashel." I want to note that he pronounced it like it was Klingon or something. He pronounced it Cash-shell, which is not how it's pronounced. I said, "Oh, cool. I have been to Cashel. It's really nice there. It's only an hour away from Cork driving." "Have you been?" he replied. "Not yet, but we will go someday. Now, if you want to stay for dinner, you can't talk like that. It's rude to us Irish people." So, I kid you not, for the next hour and a half I spoke in a fake American accent. There was no great revenge or anything, and he was actually kind of friendly after that. But I did take great satisfaction out of asking him anything about Ireland and listening to the absolute nonsense he spoke. He pronounced almost every place wrong, thought pagans were still a thing, and I'm pretty sure he did not know that we were a modern country at all. Oh my goodness gracious. What a champ Op is. I'm still laughing at the fact that he faked an American accent just so the dad would not get upset at him. This person right here comments, "How did you manage to stay inside your skin? I'm an American, and had I witnessed that, I would have crawled right out and left a bag of skin laying on their living room floor. It's the most cringy thing I've ever heard." And this person responds, "I'm guessing it's the food. I would have done the same." How many of you would have faked an accent for a free meal? Be honest, guys, I'm still laughing at that. What a gem Op is to start. Next story. I'm a 33-year-old female, and I work for a major airline in reservations. I also want to make clear that I will not debate or discuss my company's policies other than perhaps stating, "This is our policy." I have nothing to do with creating policies or procedures. This particular story occurred about 3 years ago. One evening around 11 p.m. I received a call from a young gentleman. He says that we changed his reservation without consent and without notifying him, and were ruining his life. I immediately follow the standard customer service protocol and apologize before actually knowing what's happening. I asked him to hold on one moment so I could review his reservation so I could better assist him. First, I noticed that the reservation was made the same day, within the last few hours, so this couldn't be a schedule change. I also looked through the history of his reservation to find that he had booked a flight with 2 connections. It was ultimately from somewhere in California to Seattle, one connection from a small to a larger city in California, then Phoenix, and finally Seattle. That was what he had booked himself. His reservation was now showing that he was on an itinerary with only one stop, so he wouldn't be going through Phoenix anymore and would be arriving earlier. Looking even more closely, I could tell that an agent at the origin airport in California had made this change. Not only made the change, but did not charge him to change to the better itinerary. All flights were operating and on time, if not a few minutes early, so the airport had no valid reason to change the reservation for free. He was now calling from his only connection city, saying that an agent had done this without him knowing, without permission, and didn't even ask if he was okay. I'm thinking they were being very generous. They cut out an entire connection, and you'll get to Seattle 2 hours earlier. That sounds like a good deal. He's demanding a refund or double his ticket value in vouchers, all while alternating between screaming, cursing, whining, and fake crying. He says that he was going to meet someone to give them something in Phoenix, and we took out that connection. This was clear bias, as his connection in Phoenix was 30 minutes. That's only enough time to change gates in Phoenix. There's no way to deplane, exit the secured area, meet up with someone, go back through security, and make it to the next flight before doors close 10 minutes before departure time. So, I knew he was lying. I know that the airport does not change itineraries unless a flight is cancelled or delayed. Their duties deal more with checking you in, getting luggage, seeing documents for international flights, etc. I told him that he could write to our customer relations department because they would be able to do more research into his reservation to determine if it qualified for compensation. He then asked for a supervisor, so I called the supervisor, and I warned her that he's acting more and more belligerent, he's screaming louder, he's cursing, he's shouting at people in the airport, etc., etc. I could also hear him kicking his suitcase or hitting it against the wall. Then, I transferred the call to her. About 40 minutes later, he calls back and instantly asks for a supervisor, saying we're trying to screw him over and it ain't right. I call the supervisor desk, and this time it's a man that I know does not take any crud from anybody. He does not give out compensation usually and will not be disrespected. Once I've transferred the passenger, I take a break just to read if the previous supervisor had written any notes, and that's when I noticed at this point that several airport agents have documented this record too. I'll try to be as close to the actual documentation as possible. The check-in counter agent said, passenger came in to check in for flight only 47 minutes before departure. He was carrying a bag that was too big to be a carry-on, and I told him he would have to check it in for money. He became irate and yelled that he wasn't going to pay that his bag was coming on the plane with him, that it would fit, and he'd make it fit. He made a really big scene, cursing, yelling, and screaming that we're trying to rob him before running to the security line, still holding the bag. The gate agent writes, passenger arrived at the gate out of breath and already in an aggressive mood. He had a large bag with him, and I told him it was too big to be a carry-on bag and that it should have been checked in. He begins yelling, saying that whoever was at check-in said it would be fine to carry on and there was no problem. He began yelling that he thought I just had something against him because he's never had an issue with that bag. He accused me of trying to collect the fee just to pocket it myself. My supervisor came over to try to help explain and calm him down, and this was taking a very long time, so in the name of customer service, we checked the bag. Then, the guy began saying that his flights were stupid, and that since we were so rude about his bag, we should change it so he didn't have 2 connections. He started getting loud again, and I needed to start boarding the flight, so I just changed it for him to get him out of my face. But customer was happy, so good customer service. Supervisor 1 writes, I took call as supervisor on duty. Passenger was irate when I came on the line, saying that we were ruining his whole darn day and that he should have stayed home. He then began demanding a refund and vouchers no less than $500. I continued to ask him questions about his itinerary, and he admitted that he had yelled at the gate agent and threatened to hit her, so she changed his flight. He said it shouldn't matter why it was changed, just that we did it, so we owed him. I explained that you cannot get a refund if you've flown on all the flights on the ticket, and because he admits to threatening and harassing the gate agent to change his flight, he was not getting any compensation and should be glad that we haven't cancelled his flight. He then became belligerent again, saying that he would not get off the phone until he gets some money from us. He begins calling me names like beep and beep, and when I refused to give him compensation, he said he wouldn't hang up until we gave him money, and if I don't, he's going to hit an airline agent at the airport. I can hear him telling agents to give him vouchers or he will punch them in the face. I tell him that he cannot continue to threaten our agents or we will cancel his flights for tonight and call the police. At this point, he asked if I was close by because he would come find me and punch me too. I began to hear airport security start yelling orders at him like, stop, "Drop your bags," etc., and then the call dropped. Supervisor 2 writes, "Spoke with a passenger who still demanded compensation. I told him that he owes us at this point, and he has two choices. He can either control himself and act like a quiet, civilized adult, and take his flight and be done with it, or I'll cancel his flight, make sure that any small amount of value cannot be used in the future, and he can get himself home from his connecting city." He calmed down quickly and promised to behave. So, that was it for the notes on the record. The next morning I was curious, so I checked the reservation again, and the check-in counter agent noted that he had not been entitled to anything. He should have paid for his luggage and to change his reservation. My friends, I do not like people like this who are so cheap and entitled and think that raising their voice and threatening people is going to get them their way. Eventually, there's always someone who will not tolerate this tantrum-like behavior and will knock those people off their high horse. So, the last story we have for today, OP's neighbor gets a nice surprise for taking OP's dirt. Story 3, You Controlled Chaos 631. I did construction a few years ago and worked with the coolest manager ever named Thomas. Thomas had this next-door neighbor, Alan, who he can't stand. Alan would steal stuff out of Thomas's yard like gardening tools, lumber, and most importantly, dirt. Both Thomas and Alan had been growing vegetables in their backyard for years, and apparently Alan's been stealing dirt from him for years and thinks he can come and go, grabbing tools and never returning them. Thomas, being a very non-confrontational guy, lets it slide. At one of the job sites we're at, they come and drop off a ton of soil. You could climb these things, so Thomas figures they won't miss a few bucketfuls of dirt. So, we proceed to help him load up some buckets into the back of his truck. We get 8 buckets in, and he says to me, "Hold on, I need one more for Alan." I'm thinking that's really nice of him, thinking about his neighbor. But nope, he's going to leave the bucket out for him so his entitled, thieving neighbor can steal that instead of taking the dirt from his garden. And that's when he tells me about Alan and his thieving ways. So, me joking around, say, "You should take a tub of that plant killer you have and pour it over the fence," screwing him in his garden. So, unbeknownst to me, the wheels of justice start turning in Thomas's head. He says nothing to me, and we finish up the day and go home. About a week later, I show up to Thomas's house for work. He's grinning to himself the whole morning. Eventually, curiosity gets to me, and I have to know what's up, so I ask him. He breaks down his little revenge step by step, so he gets home and unloads his buckets of dirt in his driveway where Alan can see them. He proceeds to dump them all one by one where he needs them, but he forgets one. Now, this bucket was a special bucket. It was laced with plant killer. He emptied the entire bottle into the bucket and mixed it in. Now, the best part of this is that Thomas did not offer Alan the laced bucket, and he just left it out. If Alan would have asked for the dirt, he would have given him the good stuff. But instead, he opted to be sneaky. So under the cover of darkness, Thomas sees Alan run over and grab the bucket and takes almost all of it and then puts it back. After a week, his tomatoes withered and died. So he goes and buys new plants. Those don't last 2 days before they die. So he goes back to the nursery that he bought the plants from, and he gets more plants, and a few days later, they died. Every morning we check on Alan and his radioactive dirt, and we laugh quietly to ourselves about what we call Operation Scorched Earth. My friends, this is justice at its best. The neighbor was a horrible person for waltzing in Thomas's yard and treating it like a free-for-all. It was a well-deserved lesson that keeps on going because anything he plants in his garden eventually dies. Operation Scorched Earth for the win. So, scrolling through the comments, OP leaves another comment about his neighbor that says, "This dude stole everything that wasn't nailed to the ground." I didn't go into full detail for the sake of time, but I'll give you an idea of what we were dealing with. This guy stole decorative rocks from a house that was under construction 2 blocks away from him. He stole rocks. Next story. My boyfriend buys me really unique bouquets and arrangements of flowers every now and then and sends them to my office. They always go to the receptionist first, as she has to check in all deliveries. One day she calls me up and says I have a gift at the front. I head downstairs, grab the flowers, and she asks me to wait and back up so she can get the perfect picture of them. I was confused but let her take the picture because they were beautiful. I assumed she just wanted to show someone else. But then I saw on her Snapchat that she took a picture of them, captioning it, "Thank you so much, babe. I love the flowers." She's known to do this all the time, taking pictures of other people's cars, jewelry, and more, claiming them as her own on social media. A few months later, I get another call for a gift at the front. This time, I go down, and she's picking out the flowers she doesn't like. I asked her what the heck she's doing, and she says she wants to take another picture for Snapchat but doesn't like the arrangement this time. She told me to ask my boyfriend to send roses next time instead. I snatched the flowers away and told her off because, wow, maybe buy your own flowers. After writing this out, it seems pretty silly to get as heated as I did at the moment, but I was so shocked that she didn't find anything wrong with what she was doing. OP has every right to be heated. If I was getting flowers sent to work, which I never do, by the way, and someone else passed them off as a gift to themselves, I'd get pretty peeved. Or maybe not in this situation. I kind of feel bad for the receptionist because her boyfriend doesn't send her stuff to work. But taking pictures of other people's cars, jewelry, and more, claiming them as her own on social media? That's kind of sad and pathetic in my opinion. I'm not calling her pathetic though. Take a look at this comment, my friends. This person writes, I worked as a receptionist at an office, and some flowers came in for one of my Kio workers. I called her to the front and gave them to her. Right after she left, another woman at the front office came asking me who they were from. I said, how should I know? She asked, didn't you read the card? Like, no, why would I? From then on, they did not like me. It always blows my mind how nosy some people can be. That is super nosy. You guys know what's worse than nosy people? People who try to play their age card to get what they want, which is what this next story is all about. Next story. A few years ago, my significant other and I planned a 3-month trip around the world. Our first flight was from New Zealand to LA, which was 12 to 13 hours. We booked and paid for our flights, and I added premium economy seats because I'm 6'3" and wanted the extra legroom. It cost an extra $60. This flight was with Air New Zealand. The screen has your name on it when you get to your seats. We get on the plane and find that an older couple, who looked to be in their mid-70s, was sitting in our seats. I asked them if they got confused with their seat numbers, and they hadn't. I showed them my ticket and seat number and pointed to my name on the screen. They then asked me to just sit in their seats, which were 10 rows back with no legroom. I asked, so, you want me to sit in your seats? The older couple said, yes, that would be nice. Thank you. We could really use the extra space. I told them I paid extra for these seats and would like to sit in them. Please move to your seats. They said, oh, it's not that bad. There's plenty of legroom in our seats too. Then why don't you go there? I replied. I'll gladly help you move your bags. A flight attendant came along because the line was getting long. The older couple said, this man wants us to move seats. These are our seats. We specifically booked these because we need the legroom. The flight attendant looked at me and said, sir, please go to your allocated seats. I told her, here's my ticket, and these people are sitting in my seat. I paid extra because I need the legroom. The flight attendant said to the older couple, excuse me, you're going to have to move to your own seats as you have not paid for these seats. The older couple responded, well, can we please have an upgrade? We can really use the extra space. The flight attendant told them, sorry, this is a full flight, so that's not possible. The older couple was stunned. I got some stink eye from other people on the flight, but I paid extra for legroom, and I need it. I just have one question. Stink eye for what? OP was sitting in his rightful seat that he paid for. I didn't see OP describing others jumping at the opportunity to give up their seats for the older couple. Guys, I might have given up my seat if the flight was shorter, like 2 to 3 hours. I would have considered it, but 12 to 13 hours from New Zealand to LA? Not a chance, my friends. Let me know what you would have done in this situation. I'd love to know how many people would have gladly given up their seats for the older couple. The next story features a Karen in a coffee shop who is just lovely because Karens are such lovely people. Next story. Yesterday, Sunday, I decided to get up early and get myself organized. My partner and I are in the middle of sorting our flat and needed to pick up some items from Argos and the pet store for my cat. My partner was working. I live in a fairly large city near a retail park and stupidly didn't check the Sunday opening hours for the shops. I got there at about 9:45 in the morning, and most shops didn't open until 10:30. So I found a place and decided to have some breakfast and a drink until the shops opened. When I got there, the place was pretty dead. There was only me and 2 other people in there. The table layout was in groups of 4, so I sat myself down and played on my phone for a bit. It turns out there's a kids' workshop that goes on every Sunday nearby. While I was sitting there, it got busy very fast. Soon, there was nowhere to sit down. I'd nearly finished my drink, but it was still only 10:15 in the morning, and as it was freezing, I didn't fancy standing outside the shop until it opened. The line was quite long at this point, with maybe 20 people or so in line. I noticed a lady, Karen, talking to her husband and looking at me. She was maybe 15th in line. They had a little kid with them, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Karen made a beeline for my table with the kid in tow and said, "Excuse me, do you mind moving so we can sit down?" I told her, "You guys are more than welcome to sit with me. I'm just waiting for Argos to open in 10 minutes, and then I'll be off." She said, "No, you need to move. We want this table to ourselves. You're finished with your drink, so it's unfair of you to hog the table." I told her, "I'm literally leaving in 10 minutes. I don't want to wait outside in the freezing cold, and you're more than welcome to share the table with me till then. By the time your husband's ordered and got your drinks, I'll have left anyway." Karen raised her voice at me and said, "No, you need to move now. I have a kid that needs to sit down, and you're being selfish." Her screeching alerted one of the baristas, who came over and asked if everything was okay. Karen said, "She has finished her drink and won't move, so we can't sit down. Tell her she has to leave." I took a pointed sip of my coffee at this point to emphasize I wasn't actually done yet. The barista said, "Miss, she's still drinking her drink, and she's a paying customer as well. She has the right to sit here." The barista looked at me and said, "Do you mind sharing your table?" I went to say that I had already offered the table, but Karen cut over me and said, "I don't want to share the table with her. She needs to leave." The barista told her, "This is a family establishment. I suggest you stop shouting and either share the table with someone or leave." Karen said, "Fine, I'll leave, and I'll tell everybody not to come here." She stormed off, grabbing her husband. The barista rolled her eyes at me and went back to the counter. A minute later, a young woman came over and asked if her kid could sit down with me while she ordered drinks. I said yes. I spent 5 minutes playing with the kid, and by the time the young mother came back, I was packing up my things to go. They got a nice table to themselves by just being nice. Oh my goodness, when will people learn that getting aggressive gets you nowhere? There's no point in yelling at a complete stranger and making a huge scene. I'm pretty sure Karens do that just to look foolish at this point. The last story, my friends, is absolutely ridiculous. This is entitlement at its maximum. A Karen thinks OP's daughter is not as important as hers. Next story. This happened yesterday. My 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with bacterial pneumonia, and we ended up in the emergency room because she was struggling to breathe. Pneumonia is very serious. She was put on a nebulizer and given in 4 for more meds while we waited for a room to open up in the PICU. The emergency room was pretty full. The rooms are small, and you share them. There's a curtain that divides them and no doors, just another curtain. At around 4 in the afternoon, a family arrived with a mom, a dad, and a 5-year-old daughter. The mom briefly looked on my side of the room and could see my little toddler lying in the bed, hooked to a machine with an 4th. It's obvious this wasn't a stubbed toe. I couldn't help but hear the parents explaining why their kid was in the emergency room, stomach pain. Meanwhile, the kid was asking for something to eat and sounded quite perky. The parents insisted she had a kidney infection. Whatever. I don't know her history, and I'm not interested. My daughter was given a steroid through her nebulizer to help open her airways. Her oxygen level, which they wanted at 90 or above, kept dipping to the low 80s, making an alarm sound. The nebulizer makes some noise, and a side effect is hyperactivity, so my extremely sick kid was medically wired. Within 30 minutes of arriving, the entitled Karen called for a nurse and asked for a private room because their daughter needed to rest somewhere quiet. Meanwhile, their daughter was blasting Ryan's toy review from her tablet and loudly demanding chocolate chip cookies and milk. The nurse explained that there are no private rooms in the emergency room. My daughter then started to have a coughing fit, which was scary as her oxygen dropped, and she nearly choked until she vomited. 2 nurses came in trying to help her by suctioning and patting her on the back. My daughter was turning blue. Here's where I get upset. I heard the Karen ask the nurse, "How long are we going to be expected to listen to that for?" After, my daughter was wiped out and crying a little. The mom rang for the nurse again and asked for a quiet place so her little girl could rest. Her daughter was making a lot of noise, playing with something. Then they started playing with the lights. The room has a switch to control the lights on each side and a master switch to cut out all the lights. My daughter is afraid of the dark. The dad turned off the lights for the whole room, making it quite dark with the curtain over the doorway drawn. I told my husband to turn on the lights on our side, which he did. Karen called the nurse to complain that it was too bright for her little girl to sleep. It was 5 in the evening. The nurse explained that they're welcome to shut the lights off on their side, but have to leave our side alone. They complained about how ill their daughter was. Meanwhile, my daughter was basically gasping for breath, and I'm sure they knew, as they could hear everything. The nurse left, and they shut the lights off for the entire room again. My husband immediately turned ours on and called through the curtain that we needed our lights on. Silence. Our nurse came in to attend to my daughter's IV, and they attempted to get her to force us to have the lights off. Our nurse basically told them to knock it off. Then they started pushing for more space. They attempted to push our chair where my husband was sitting away. They put their chair way over on our side of the room, pushing the curtains into our faces. My husband pushed it back and they called to complain. Rinse and repeat. Finally, a room in the PICU opened up and we were told we'd be admitted in an hour. Karen complained that they asked for a private room first. The nurse explained that we were being admitted, not given a private room in the emergency room. The parents demanded they be admitted first because their daughter was much sicker and should come first, as we'd been there for a while already. The nurse said there was no reason for their daughter to be admitted, as she was just constipated, and as soon as she pooped, they'd be free to go. That's when the parents freaked out and lost it on the nurse. So yeah, that's my story of how the parents of a little girl who needed to take a poop felt they were more important than a little girl with pneumonia. My friends, this story is absolutely ridiculous. It's one of the few stories that kind of upsets me. I understand that Karen is concerned for her own kid, but if you're in the emergency room, you've got to realize that other parents may have it worse. In this situation, OP did have it worse. Karen's behavior and lack of empathy are just disgusting. To place her daughter above OP's daughter in importance really gets me upset, guys. These stories are a perfect storm of entitlement and absurdity, and I'm equal parts amused and appalled. The bra mishap with OP's mom is classic Karen behavior. I've seen parents like that, demanding refunds with threats, oblivious to retail realities. OP's calm approach, using her banking app to prove purchase, is inspiring. It shows kindness trumps aggression. She got her refund without drama. Moms, listen to your retail-savvy kids. The cocktail waitress tale is infuriating. Karen's alcohol vapor, pseudoscience, and threats to revoke the license are delusional. I've worked service jobs, and pregnant women face enough judgment without Bible-thumping strangers. The owner's shutdown and police escort? Glorious. Karen's hypocrisy preaching child safety while harassing staff is peak irony. The dad's food control is abusive, not just entitled. I've battled eating issues, and his portion policing and trash-digging scream control freak. OP's boundary setting is empowering. Breaking free from that toxicity is huge. Therapy might help unpack the damage. The clothesline drama is ridiculous. Karen's outrage over underwear and police call for flashing is unhinged nosiness. I've had prying neighbors, and OP's restraint was admirable. The smug glare? She deserved the silent treatment. Public spaces aren't her domain. The flight saga is epic pettiness. Karen's seat theft and husband's aggression are vile. I'd have snapped too. OP's curse on the baby was a masterstroke, harmless yet terrifying to her. Costing them $500 and a missed flight? Delicious. The arrest was the cherry. The peer claim is delusional entitlement. Owning public property because your house is nearby? Absurd. Snatching a crab? Pathetic. The neighbor's firm stance with the rule sign was spot on. The ER poop tantrum is heartbreakingly selfish. Prioritizing a constipated kid over a toddler with pneumonia? Monstrous. I've waited in ERs. Empathy is key. The nurse's constipation reveal? Humiliating karma. These stories prove entitled folks dig their own graves. Stay kind, folks. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our Entitled People. Guys, I hope you enjoyed your time with me today, and thanks for sticking around for the stories. If you missed the last episode of our Entitled People, check it out if you haven't. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you. I really mean it. I do. Stay safe out there.